You stand in the flickering torchlight of a grand chamber, 1572. The air thick with the scent of roses and impending doom. Silk sheets rustle as the bride, Margaret of Valois, trembles beneath her gown, her new husband, Henry of Navarre, eyeing the door with unease. Outside, Paris hums with wedding festivities, but whispers of betrayal slither through the cracks. This is no fairy tale union. It's a powder keg of politics and prejudice, where vows seal not love, but a night of blood and terror. As the couple is left alone, the city erupts in screams, the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre claiming thousands. You clutch your breath, heart pounding, knowing this is but one of history's most horrific wedding nights, where marriage meant fear, humiliation, and rivers of red. You stand in the shadowed nave of Notre Dame Cathedral, August 18, 1572, where the air is thick with the scent of incense and the weight of uneasy alliances. The vast stone arches loom overhead, their Gothic grandeur dwarfing the figures below, yet they cannot mask the tension that crackles like a storm about to break. Before you, a young woman, Margaret of Valois, stands resplendent in a gown of gold and white, her dark hair adorned with pearls, her face a mask of composure hiding a heart that beats with dread. Across from her, Henry of Navarre, a Protestant, prince with a roguish charm, shifts uncomfortably, his eyes darting to the sea of Catholic courtiers whose glares pierce like daggers. This is no love match, but a political gambit, orchestrated by Margaret's mother, Catherine de' Medici, to bind Catholic and Protestant in a fragile truce. You clutch the edge of your cloak, your breath shallow, sensing that these vows will ignite not peace, but a blood-soaked nightmare that will stain the streets of Paris red. The year is 1572, and France teeters on the edge of chaos. The wars of charm. Religion have torn the nation apart for a decade, pitting Catholics against Huguenots, French Protestants, in a brutal struggle for power. Catherine de' Medici, the cunning Queen Mother, seeks to quell the violence by marrying her daughter, Margaret, known as Margot, to Henry, leader of the Huguenot faction. Margot, at 22, is a Valois princess, educated in the arts and politics, her beauty and wit celebrated in the courts of Europe. But her heart belongs elsewhere, to Henry, Duke of Guise, a Catholic noble whose forbidden love she must forsake for this union. You see her now, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusts her veil, her dark eyes scanning the cathedral for a glimpse of her mother's calculating smile. The crowd murmurs, a mix of Catholic nobles and wary Huguenot guests, their forced civility, a thin veneer over mutual distrust. You feel the air grow heavy, as if the stones themselves know this wedding is a spark in a powder keg. Henry of Navarre, 21, stands tall, his beard framing a face that masks his unease with a practiced grin. Raised in the rugged hills, of Béarn, he is a soldier prince, more at home on a battlefield than in this gilded cage. His Protestant faith makes him an outsider in this Catholic stronghold, his every move watched by courtiers who whisper "heretic" behind their fans. You overhear their mutterings as you stand among them. A Huguenot king in Paris, blasphemy? The Queen Mother plays a dangerous game. Henry knows the stakes. His marriage is meant to heal a fractured France, but one false step could cost him his life. He glances at Margot, their eyes meeting briefly, a silent acknowledgement of their shared predicament. They are pawns in Catherine's chess game, their union a desperate bid to avert war. But you sense the truth. Peace is a fleeting dream in a city simmering with hate. The ceremony begins, a spectacle of opulence and unease. Outside, on a platform built for the occasion, Margot and Henry exchange vows before a restless crowd of Parisians. The cathedral's bells toll, their clang echoing like a warning. Margot's voice is steady as she pledges herself, but you imagine her thoughts racing. This is duty, not love. Henry, his hand gripping hers, speaks his vows, with a soldier's resolve, but his eyes flicker to the armed guards lining the walls. The Catholic clergy, resplendent in their vestments, preside with barely concealed disdain, their prayers laced with reluctance. You feel the tension coil tighter, the air thick with the scent of wax and unspoken threats. As the couple is pronounced, man and wife, a cheer rises, but it's hollow, drowned out by the undercurrent of suspicion. The Huguenot guests, including Admiral Gaspard de Coligny, a father figure to Henry, stand stiffly, their hands never far from their swords. The wedding feast follows, a lavish display in the Palais de la Cité, where tables groan under the weight of roasted swan and spiced wine. You weave through the crowd, catching snippets of conversation. Catholic nobles toast with forced smiles, while Huguenots murmur of plots. Margot, seated beside Henry, plays her role, her laughter bright but her eyes wary. To peace, she toasts, raising her goblet, but the words feel like ash in her mouth. Henry, his charm a shield, jests with his new in-laws, but you notice his hand lingering near his dagger. The music swells, lutes and viols weaving a fragile harmony, but the festivity is a facade. You overhear a Catholic lord whisper to another, "This union will end in blood." Your heart quickens, sensing the truth in his words. As the city outside grows restless, its streets filled with armed men and whispered conspiracies. As night falls, the most humiliating ritual begins, the public bedding ceremony, a royal tradition, to ensure the marriage's legitimacy. You stand in the crowded bedchamber, the air stifling with the scent of perfume and anticipation. Nobles and clergy press close, their eyes gleaming with voyeuristic curiosity, as Margot is led to the canopied bed, her face flushed with shame. Henry follows, his jaw tight, his Protestant sensibilities recoiling at the Catholic spectacle. The curtains are drawn back, exposing the couple to the crowd's scrutiny. You imagine Margot's thoughts, her heart pounding like a trapped bird. This is no marriage, but a stage for their politics. The courtiers jeer, some shouting crude jests, their laughter a brutal humiliation. Henry, his face a mask, lies beside her, their bodies stiff under the weight of 1,000 eyes. The act, meant to seal their union, is a hollow performance, their privacy stripped away in a ritual that leaves scars deeper than any blade. But the true horror is yet to come. 6 days later, on August 24th, as the wedding festivities linger, Paris erupts in violence. The St. Bartholomew's Day massacre begins with the attempted assassination of Admiral Coligny, sparking a Catholic-led slaughter of Huguenots. You hear. The screams pierce the night, the clash of steel and the crackle of fires as the city turns to chaos. In the Louvre, where Margot and Henry have taken refuge, the air is thick with panic. Margot, awakened by the cries, clutches Henry's arm, her voice trembling. "They're killing your people." Henry, his face pale, grips his sword, whispering, "We are betrayed." You imagine Catherine de' Medici's shadow looming. Her plan, whether to spark the massacre or merely exploit it, shrouding the palace in deceit. The couple's wedding night, already a spectacle of shame, becomes a prelude to slaughter. The streets running red with the blood of thousands. Estimates range from 5,000 to 30,000. In their chamber, Margot and Henry face a night of terror, not love. You see them huddled together, the sounds of death seeping through the walls, their marriage a fragile shield against the violence outside. Margot, torn between her Catholic family and her Protestant husband, makes a desperate choice, later recorded. In her memoirs, she refuses to abandon Henry, shielding him from assassins. "Stay with me," she might have pleaded, her voice a mix of fear and resolve. Henry, his soldier's instincts sharp, nods, his trust in her a flicker of hope in the darkness. The humiliation of their bedding pales against the horror of survival, their union forged not in passion, but in a shared fight against betrayal. You stand in the shadows, heart racing as the screams grow louder, the city a cauldron of blood and fear. The massacre rages for days, the Seine choked with bodies, the air heavy with the stench of death. Margot and Henry survive, their marriage, intact but scarred, a union born in blood and sustained by necessity. You feel the weight of their ordeal, the wedding night that promised peace, now a symbol of brutality. This is only the beginning of a tale of horrific nuptials, where vows meant not love, but survival in a world that devours trust. As the fires of Paris burn, you wonder, how did this couple endure, and what other nights of terror await in history's shadows? You stand in the opulent Winter Palace of St. Petersburg, August 21st, 1745, where candlelight dances on gilded walls, casting shadows that seem to mock the young couple at the heart of this grand charade. The air is heavy with the scent of beeswax and rosewater, but beneath it lies a chill that no fire can warm. Before you, Sophie Augusta Frederica of Anhalt-Zerbst, now renamed Catherine, a mere 16, stands in a gown of silver brocade, her auburn hair adorned with diamonds, her eyes bright with hope, yet clouded by uncertainty. Across from her, Peter Ulrich, heir to the Russian throne, fidgets, his lanky frame awkward in his embroidered coat, his gaze fixed not on his bride but on a wooden box of toy soldiers clutched in his hands. This is no union of hearts, but a political alliance orchestrated by Empress Elizabeth to secure Russia's future. You clutch your velvet sleeve, heart thudding, sensing that this wedding night will be a spectacle of neglect and humiliation, sowing seeds of rebellion in a young woman destined to become Catherine the Great. Russia in 1745 is a land of splendor and intrigue, its court a glittering maze of ambition under Elizabeth's iron rule. Catherine, born in Prussia, is a pawn in this game. Summoned at 14 to marry Peter, the orphaned Duke of Holstein, chosen as heir to strengthen ties with Europe. She is a stranger in this vast empire, her Lutheran faith traded for orthodoxy, her name changed to erase her past. You see her now, her delicate hands smoothing her gown, her mind racing with lessons learned in the courts of Zerbst, etiquette, languages, and the art of survival. She is no mere girl. Her intellect burns bright, her ambition a quiet flame, fanned by her mother's relentless scheming. But as she stands before Peter, her heart flutters with naive hope, dreaming of a partnership that might ease her isolation in this foreign land. You overhear courtiers whisper behind their fans, "She's too clever for her own good." The Grand Duke cares only for his toys. The words sting, foreshadowing a night that will scar her soul. Peter, 17, is a study in contrasts. Tall, yet boyish, his pale face marked by smallpox scars, his mind trapped in childhood fantasies. Raised in Holstein under harsh tutors, he clings to his toy soldiers, a refuge from the weight of a crown he neither understands nor desires. You watch him at the wedding banquet, his laughter shrill as he arranges tin figures on the table, ignoring the feast of caviar and venison. His German accent grates on Russian ears, his Protestant leanings a source of suspicion in this Orthodox court. Empress Elizabeth, resplendent in furs, watches him with a mix of pity and frustration, her dream of a strong heir fading with each of his childish antics. To her, Catherine is the key, a bride to mold Peter into a ruler. But you sense the truth. Peter's heart is a locked fortress, and Catherine holds no key. The ceremony in Kazan Cathedral is a spectacle of Russian grandeur, its golden domes gleaming under a summer sky. You stand among the nobles, the air thick, with incense and the drone of Orthodox chants. Catherine's voice is clear as she recites her vows, her eyes searching Peter's for a spark of warmth. He mumbles his responses, his fingers twitching toward his toy box, his mind elsewhere. The crowd cheers, but their applause is dutiful, tinged with doubt about this mismatched pair. You feel the tension coil, the weight of expectation pressing on Catherine's shoulders. She is no longer Sophie, the Prussian girl, but Ekaterina Alexeyevna, Russia's future. Yet as she glances at Peter, his gaze fixed on a painted soldier, her hope falters, a premonition of the humiliation to come. The banquet that follows is a glittering farce, the Winter Palace's halls alive with music and laughter that ring hollow. You weave through the crowd, catching glimpses of Catherine, her smile fixed as she navigates the court's labyrinth of flattery and scorn. Peter, seated beside her, ignores her attempts at conversation, his fingers arranging his toys in mock Battles. "Look, a Prussian advance," he exclaims, his voice boyish as nobles stifle smirks. Catherine's cheeks flush, her dignity bruised by his indifference. You imagine her thoughts, her heart sinking like a stone in the Neva. Is this my husband, a child playing at war? She sips her wine, her eyes scanning the room for allies, finding only the cold stare of Elizabeth's spies. The courtiers whisper, "The Grand Duke shuns his bride. She'll never tame him." Their words are daggers, each one carving deeper into her resolve. As night falls, the bedding ceremony begins, a ritual as invasive as it is humiliating. You stand in the crowded bridal chamber, the air stifling with the scent of perfume and anticipation. Nobles and maids press close, their eyes gleaming with curiosity, as Catherine is led to the canopied bed, her face pale beneath her rouge. Peter follows, clutching his toy box, his expression a mix of annoyance and disinterest. The curtains are parted, exposing the couple to the crowd's scrutiny. You imagine Catherine's heart pounding, her breath shallow as she lies beneath the silk sheets, praying for a moment of connection. "Peter, look at me," she might have whispered, her voice trembling with hope. But he turns away, setting, his soldiers on the bedside table, muttering about cavalry tactics. The courtiers snicker, their laughter a lash across her pride. He prefers toys to his wife, one jeers, the words echoing in the gilded room. The night stretches on, a study in neglect. Peter, oblivious to his bride, plays with his soldiers, arranging them in formations as Catherine lies alone, her dreams of partnership crumbling. You see her stare at the ceiling, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, her mind racing with the weight of her new reality. I am alone, she might have thought, her fingers clutching the sheets. In a land that does not want me. The marriage remains unconsummated, a fact that will haunt them for 9 years, as Peter's immaturity, or perhaps a deeper affliction, renders him incapable of intimacy. Chronicles, including Catherine's own memoirs, recount his childish obsession, his refusal to engage with his wife, leaving her to face the court's mockery alone. You feel her isolation, a young woman trapped in a golden cage, her ambition the only spark in the darkness. The humiliation does not end with dawn. Word spreads through the palace. The Grand Duke played with toys all night. The bride lay untouched. Elizabeth, furious, summons Catherine, her voice sharp. You must make him a man or Russia suffers. Catherine, her dignity battered, nods, but her heart hardens. You imagine her writing in her diary, her quill scratching. In the candlelight, I will not be broken by this boy. The court's whispers grow louder, branding her a failure, a barren bride in a land that demands heirs. Peter, oblivious, continues his games, his toy soldiers a mockery of the empire he is meant to rule. You stand in the shadows, heart heavy, knowing that this night of neglect is but the first chapter in a saga of betrayal and ambition. Catherine's spirit, though bruised, does not break. You see her in the days that follow, studying Russian, charming nobles and plotting her survival in a court that scorns her. The seeds of rebellion take root, her humiliation fueling a resolve that will one day topple Peter from his throne. This wedding night, a spectacle of folly and shame, is not just a personal tragedy but a turning point, forging a woman who will become Russia's greatest empress. As you turn from the palace, the Neva's icy waters reflecting the dawn, you wonder, how will Catherine rise from this night of rejection, and what other horrors await in history's bridal chambers? You stand in the candle-lit splendor of the Chapel Royal, St. James's Palace, April 8, 1795, where the air is thick with the scent of polished oak and the sour tang of dread. The chandeliers gleam, casting flickering light on a crowd of powdered wigs and silk gowns, but their forced smiles cannot mask the unease that coils like a serpent in the room. Before you, George, Prince of Wales, sways in his velvet coat, his handsome face flushed with brandy, his eyes glassy with resentment. Across from him, Caroline of Brunswick, a robust German princess of 26, adjusts her silver-embroidered gown, her forced cheer hiding a heart that races with apprehension. This is no union of love, but a transaction to settle George's debts, orchestrated by Parliament and King George III. You clutch your fan, your breath shallow, sensing that this wedding night will be a grotesque spectacle of revulsion and humiliation, destined to echo through England's scandal sheets. England in 1795 is a nation of opulence and unrest, its monarchy strained by the French Revolution's shadow and the king's looming madness. George at 32 is a notorious libertine, his debts piling high from gambling and mistresses, his charm soured by excess. Caroline, cousin to the prince, is chosen to tame him and produce an heir, her Brunswick vigour a stark contrast to his decadence. You see her now, her round face flushed with nervous excitement, her blonde curls bouncing as she tries to engage the crowd with her boisterous laugh. But her unrefined manners, her loud voice, her questionable hygiene, draw sneers from the English court. You overhear nobles whisper behind their gloves, "She smells of sweat and garlic." A coarse match for our prince. George, already smitten with his secret wife, Maria Fitzherbert, loathes the sight of Caroline, his disgust palpable, as he downs another glass of wine. You feel the air grow heavy, the weight of their mutual repulsion a storm brewing beneath. The ceremony's pomp. The wedding is a gaudy display. The chapel royal packed with aristocrats whose loyalty is to protocol, not the couple. You stand among them, the air thick with the scent of pomade and whispered bets on how long this union will last. George stumbles through his vows, his voice slurred, his hand trembling, as he places the ring on Caroline's finger. She, trying to bridge the chasm between them, smiles broadly, her German accent jarring in the hushed hall. "I will be a good wife," she might have said, her words earnest, but met with George's grimace. The crowd's applause is tepid, their eyes darting to the prince's unsteady gait. King George III, watching from his throne, nods approvingly, blind to his son's misery. You sense the truth. This marriage is a gilded cage, locking two strangers in a dance of duty and disdain. The banquet at Carlton House is a riot of excess, tables laden with roast pheasant, sugared fruits, and rivers of claret. You weave through the throng, catching glimpses of Caroline, her laughter loud as she tries to win favour, unaware that her unwashed scent and bold manners repel the refined court. George, already drunk, ignores her, his eyes fixed on his wineglass, or the painted ceiling, as if wishing to escape. You imagine her thoughts, her heart sinking like a stone in the Thames. Why does he hate me so? She tries to jest with him, her hand brushing his, but he recoils, his face twisting in disgust. Her breath is foul, he mutters to a friend loud enough for nearby ears to catch. The courtiers titter, their laughter a lash across Caroline's pride. You feel her humiliation, a princess reduced to a jest in a court that thrives on scorn. As night falls, the bedding ceremony begins, a ritual as invasive as it is degrading. You stand in the crowded bridal chamber, the air stifling with the scent of lavender and anticipation. Nobles press close, their eyes gleaming with voyeuristic glee as Caroline is led to the canopied bed, her face flushed with shame beneath her powder. George, staggering, follows, his coat stained with wine, his expression one of barely concealed loathing. The curtains are parted, exposing the couple to the crowd's scrutiny. You imagine Caroline's heart pounding, her breath catching as she lies beneath the silk sheets, praying for a moment of kindness. "George, please," she might have whispered, her voice trembling with hope. But he turns away, muttering about her offensive odour, his words a dagger to her dignity. The courtiers snicker, their jests cruel. The prince can't bear her stench. The humiliation is unbearable, a public shaming that strips her bare before the court. The night descends into chaos. George, overcome by drink, collapses on the floor vomiting as Caroline watches in horror. You see her sit up, her hands clutching the sheets, her eyes glistening with tears as the crowd's laughter echoes. "This is my husband," she might have thought, her dreams of royal glory crumbling like ash. The marriage is consummated barely, in a fleeting moment of duty before George's drunken stupor overtakes him, but the act is devoid of affection, a mechanical transaction that leaves Caroline alone in the vast bed. Chronicles, including Caroline's own letters, recount his disgust, his refusal to touch her again, branding her a failure before the night is through. You feel her isolation, a princess abandoned in a hostile court, her spirit battered but not yet broken. The morning brings no relief. Word spreads through London. The prince fled his bride's bed. She repelled him with her filth. The court's gossip, amplified by George's own complaints, turns Caroline into a caricature, her hygiene and manners mocked in pamphlets and ballads. You imagine her in her chamber, staring into a mirror, her reflection a stranger in this unforgiving land. "I am a princess," she might have whispered, her voice cracking with resolve, "and I will not be their jest." But the humiliation festers, the courts scorn a wound that will never heal. George, nursing his hangover, vows to shun her, his heart still with Maria Fitzherbert. You stand in the shadows, heart heavy, knowing that this night of drunken disaster is but the start of a marriage that will end in scandal and separation. Before we dive deeper into this tale of repulsion and royal ruin, let's pause. If you're gripped by these stories of marriage turned nightmare, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. Drop a comment below. Have you heard of a worse wedding night? It's astonishing how these tales of blood and shame connect us across centuries, revealing the human cost of power. As Caroline's tears dry, her resolve hardens, but the court's cruelty will only grow, setting the stage for a lifetime of public disgrace. The fallout from this night shapes their doomed union. Caroline, pregnant soon after, bears a daughter. Charlotte in 1796, but George refuses to live with her, their marriage a public farce. You see her in the months that follow, trying to navigate the court's hostility, her German frankness clashing with English decorum. The whispers grow louder, branding her a slattern unfit for a prince. George, emboldened by his courtiers, spreads tales of her flaws, fueling a scandal that will culminate in a separation trial in 1820. This wedding night, a drunken disaster, is not just a personal humiliation, but a spark that ignites a lifetime of conflict. A marriage defined by loathing and public scorn. As you turn from Carlton House, the dawn breaking over London's spires, you wonder, how will Caroline endure this shame? And what other nights? You stand in the gilded splendor of Versailles' Hall of Mirrors, May 16, 1770, where the air shimmers with the scent of rosewater and the weight of a dynasty's expectations. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light on polished floors, but their brilliance cannot mask the tension that hums like a taut string. Before you, Marie Antoinette, a mere 14, stands in a gown of silver tissue, her golden hair piled high with pearls, her blue eyes wide with a child's hope and a princess's dread. Across from her, Louis Auguste, the Dauphin of France, 15, shifts awkwardly in his velvet coat, his round face flushed, his gaze fixed on the floor as if seeking escape. This is no union of hearts, but a diplomatic seal between Austria and France, orchestrated to cement an alliance against Prussia. You clutch your silk sleeve, heart racing, sensing that this wedding night will be a spectacle of failure and humiliation, its echoes destined to fuel a revolution. France in 1770 is a kingdom of opulence teetering on the edge of ruin, its treasury drained by wars and its people restless under Louis XV's indulgent reign. Marie Antoinette, born Maria Antonia, is the youngest daughter of Empress Maria Theresa, sent from Vienna to bind two rival powers. She is a child, barely past dolls, her education a whirlwind of etiquette and French, her innocence a stark contrast to Versailles' decadence. You see her now, her delicate hands smoothing her gown, her smile practiced but fragile as she navigates a court that views her as a foreign intruder. Louis, the shy Dauphin, is no match for her vivacity, his life shaped by tutors and hunting, his body plagued by a secret affliction, phimosis, a condition that renders intimacy painful, though none dare speak it aloud. You overhear courtiers whisper behind their fans, "The Austrian girl is too bold. The Dauphin is too weak." Their words are daggers, foreshadowing a night that will scar both bride and groom. The ceremony in Versailles' royal chapel is a pageant of grandeur, its stained glass windows glowing under a spring sun. You stand among the nobles, the air thick with incense and the drone of Latin prayers. Marie's voice is clear as she recites her vows, her accent charming yet foreign, her eyes searching Louis for reassurance. He mumbles his responses, his hands trembling, his shyness a wall between them. The crowd cheers, but their applause is hollow, tinged with skepticism about this youthful pair. Louis XV, the aging king, watches with a lecherous grin. His court, a labyrinth of intrigue where loyalty is a mask. You feel the tension coil, the weight of France's hopes pressing on Marie's slender shoulders. She is no longer an Austrian archduchess, but the future queen. Yet as she glances at Louis, his gaze averted, her hope falters, a premonition of the ordeal to come. The banquet in the Grand Trianon is a dazzling display, tables laden with lobster, truffles, and sugared violets. You weave through the throng, catching glimpses of Marie, her laughter bright as she tries to charm the court, unaware that her Austrian manners, too lively, too informal, draw sneers. Louis, seated beside her, picks at his plate, his silence, a stark contrast to her chatter. "Tell me of your hunts, Louis," she might have said, her voice eager, but he shrugs, his eyes on his lap. The courtiers murmur, "She'll never hold him. He's no king yet." Their words sting, sowing seeds of doubt that will grow into national scorn. Marie, sensing the chill, clings to her mother's letters, tucked in her bodice, their advice echoing, "Win their hearts, but guard your own." You feel her isolation, a child bride in a court that devours innocence. As night falls, the bedding ceremony begins, a ritual as invasive as it is humiliating. You stand in the crowded royal bedchamber, the air stifling with the scent of lavender, and eager anticipation. Nobles, clergy, and maids press close, their eyes gleaming with voyeuristic curiosity as Marie is led to the canopied bed, her face pale beneath her rouge. Louis follows, his steps halting, his round face flushed with embarrassment. The curtains are parted, exposing the couple to the crowd's scrutiny, a tradition to ensure the marriage's legitimacy. You imagine Marie's heart pounding like a trapped bird, her breath shallow as she lies beneath the silk sheets, praying for a moment of connection. "Louis, we are one now," she might have whispered, her voice trembling with hope. But he lies rigid, his body frozen by fear and physical pain, his condition a silent barrier. The courtiers watch, their silence louder than any jest as nothing happens. No touch, no consummation, only an awkward stillness that brands the night a failure. The night stretches on, a study in futility. Louis, overwhelmed by his affliction and shyness, turns away, his breath uneven, while Marie lies awake, her eyes fixed on the gilded ceiling, her dreams of partnership crumbling. You see her clutch the sheets, her mind racing with the weight of her new reality. Am I to be a queen without a husband's love? The marriage remains unconsummated, a fact that will haunt them for 7 years, as Louis' phimosis, later corrected by surgery in 1777, renders intimacy impossible. Chronicles, including Marie's letters to her mother, recount the court's growing mockery, their whispers of impotent Dauphin spreading like wildfire. You feel her humiliation, a young girl exposed to a nation's judgment, her dignity stripped by the crowd's prying eyes. The courtiers disperse at dawn, their laughter echoing. The Austrian fails her duty. The Dauphin is no man, the morning brings no respite. Word spreads through Versailles. The royal bed was cold. The Dauphine could not rouse him. The court's gossip, amplified by satirical pamphlets, turns Marie into a figure of ridicule, her youth and charm no shield against scorn. You imagine her in her chamber, staring into a mirror, her reflection a stranger in this hostile palace. "I am France's hope," she might have whispered, her voice cracking with resolve, "and I will endure." But the humiliation festers. The courts disdain a wound that will shape her reputation as frivolous, even as she tries to win their love with charity and charm. Louis, retreating to his books and hunts, avoids her, his shame a silent wall. Between them, you stand in the shadows, heart-heavy, knowing that this night of failure is but the start of a marriage that will fuel revolutionary fires. Before we plunge deeper into this tale of scrutiny and shame, let's pause. If you're captivated by these stories of marriage-turned-nightmare, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. Drop a comment below. What's the worst wedding night you've heard of? It's astonishing how these tales of failure and scorn connect us across centuries, revealing the human cost of power. As Marie's tears dry, her resolve hardens, but the court's cruelty will only grow, setting the stage for a kingdom's collapse. The fallout from this night shapes their troubled union. For 7 years, the marriage remains unconsummated, the court's mockery growing into revolutionary satire that paints Marie as a spendthrift and Louis as a weakling. You see her in the months that follow, hosting salons, dancing at balls, her laughter a mask for her pain. The whispers of impotence and barrenness cling to them, fueling discontent that will erupt in 1789. This wedding night, a spectated stall, is not just a personal tragedy, but a spark that ignites a nation's unrest, a marriage defined by failure and public shame. As you turn from Versailles, the dawn breaking over its gardens, you wonder, how will Marie endure this scrutiny? And what other nights of horror await in history's annals? You stand in the flickering glow of a vast hide tent on the windswept plains of Pannonia, 453 AD, where the air is thick with the scent of roasted meat and the acrid tang of spilled wine. Torches cast wild shadows on rough-hewn tables, their flames dancing to the rhythm of raucous laughter and clashing goblets. Before you, Attila, the scourge of God, sprawls on a fur-draped throne, his broad frame clad in leather and gold, his scarred face alight with drunken triumph. Across from him, Ildico, a young Germanic bride barely past her teens, sits rigid in her embroidered gown, her pale eyes wide with a mix of awe and terror. This is no union of love, but a conqueror's trophy, a marriage to cement alliances with a subdued tribe. You clutch your coarse cloak, heart-pounding, sensing that this wedding night will end not in joy, but in a torrent of blood and chaos that will shatter an empire. The Hunnic Empire in 453 is a juggernaut of terror, stretching from the Black Sea to the Rhine, its might built on Attila's relentless conquests. Known as the Flagellum Day, he is a warrior king whose name sends Roman senators trembling. At 47, his body is weathered by battle, his mind sharp but clouded by excess, his appetite for power matched only by his thirst for wine and women. Ildico, likely a princess of a Germanic tribe, perhaps the Burgundians or Ostrogoths, is a pawn in his vast game, her beauty a prize to flaunt his dominance. You see her now, her delicate hands twisting a braid, her face a mask of compliance, hiding a heart that races with dread. Her Christian upbringing clashes with the Huns' pagan revelry, her prayers a silent whisper in a world of violence. You overhear warriors' coarse jests, their voices booming, "Another bride for the king. She'll tame the beast or break." Their laughter is a lash, foreshadowing a night of horror. The wedding feast is a barbaric spectacle, the tent packed with Hunnic chieftains, their furs stained with grease, their beards dripping with mead. You weave through the crowd, the air heavy with the stench of sweat and roasted boar. Attila, at the center, raises a golden goblet, his voice a roar. "To victory, to Ildico." The warriors cheer, their fists pounding tables, but their eyes gleam with a hunger that chills you. Ildico, seated beside him, forces a smile, her hands trembling as she sips her wine. You imagine her thoughts, her heart pounding like a war. "Drum, am I bride or sacrifice?" Attila, his gaze possessive, barely notices her fear, his mind clouded by drink and the thrill of conquest. Minstrels strum lutes, their songs of battle and blood drowning out the distant howl of steppe winds. But you sense the truth. This feast is a prelude to catastrophe. The revelry grows wilder as the night deepens. Huns dance with abandon, their boots stomping the earth while slaves pour wine from clay jugs. Attila, his face flushed, boasts of his triumphs, sacking Aquileia, extorting Rome, his voice slurring as he downs another cup. Ildico, silent, watches the chaos, her eyes darting. To the tent's entrance, as if seeking escape, you catch a warrior's whisper. The king drinks to his doom. The words hang unnoticed amid the din, as Attila's laughter echoes, his hand heavy on Ildico's shoulder. Tables groan under mounds of venison, ox, and honeyed bread, the ground slick with spilled wine. You feel the air grow thicker, the torchlight, dimming as if the flames sense the coming disaster. Attila raises another toast, his voice a bellow, "To my empire eternal!" But eternity is a fragile dream in this tent of savagery. As stars burn cold above the plains, the warriors begin to disperse, their shouts fading into the night. Attila, staggering, leads Ildico to the bridal chamber, a smaller tent, its walls hung with furs, its air heavy with the scent of tallow and musk. You follow, a shadow among shadows, your heart thudding as the couple is left alone. Ildico, her gown catching the torchlight, stands like a deer before a wolf, her breath shallow. Attila, his bulk filling the space, looms over her, his laughter, now a low growl. You imagine her thoughts, her Christian prayers a silent plea, "God, spare me from this beast." She is young, perhaps 16, her life a series of surrenders, first to her tribe, now to this conqueror. Attila, his senses dulled by wine, reaches for her, his hands rough, but his body betrays him, a tremor of weakness beneath his bravado. You sense the moment's fragility, the air charged with a danger beyond the physical. The wedding night meant to seal their union descends into horror. Attila, in his drunken stupor, collapses onto the furs, his breathing heavy, his face flushed with the heat of excess. Ildico, frozen, watches as he writhes, his nose suddenly streaming blood, a torrent that stains his beard, his chest, the furs beneath him. You hear her gasp, a sharp sound lost in the tent's stifling air, as Attila chokes, his body convulsing. Historians, drawing from Priscus of Panium's accounts, debate the cause, a nosebleed from weakened vessels, perhaps an esophageal rupture, from years of heavy drinking, or in later legends, poison at Ildico's hand. Whatever the truth, the scene is grotesque. Blood pools around him, soaking the bridal bed, turning it into a crimson altar. Ildico's scream pierces the night, a cry of terror and disbelief. "He's dead!" You imagine her stumbling back, her hands shaking, her gown spattered with the king's lifeblood, her mind reeling. Will they blame me? Dawn breaks over the plains, revealing the horror to Attila's warriors. You see them rush into the tent, their shouts turning to wails as they find their king lifeless, his blood congealing on the furs. Ildico, trembling, stands frozen, her eyes wide with shock, her voice lost to fear. The Huns, superstitious and fierce, whisper of betrayal. Did she poison him? A Germanic witch, chronicles note their suspicion, though no evidence implicates her. You imagine her thoughts, her heart a storm of dread. I am no murderer, only a bride caught in fate's cruel jest. The warriors mourn, their cries echoing across the steppe, but their unity fractures. Attila's empire, held together by his iron will, begins to crumble without its heart. You feel the weight of the moment, the air heavy with the scent of blood, and the chaos of a collapsing realm. The aftermath is swift and brutal. Attila's sons, divided by ambition, vie for power, their squabbles tearing the Hunnic Empire apart by 469. Ildico's fate is uncertain. Some say she was spared, others that she vanished into obscurity, her name forever tied to this bloody night. You stand in the now silent tent, the torches guttering, and ponder the irony. A wedding meant to strengthen Attila's rule became its undoing. The court's whispers, unlike those of later eras, are not of scandal but of omens, the Huns seeing divine wrath in their king's demise. This night, a fatal feast, is not just a personal tragedy, but a turning point, a moment where excess and conquest drowned in blood. Before we move to the final tale of matrimonial horror, let's pause. If you're gripped by these stories of blood and betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. Drop a comment. What's the most shocking end you've heard? It's astonishing how these tales connect us across centuries, revealing the fragility of power. As Attila's blood stains the furs, you wonder, what final horror awaits in history's bridal chambers? The night's legacy lingers, a cautionary tale of hubris and mortality. Ildico, a mere footnote in chronicles, carries the weight of suspicion. Her wedding night a nightmare that reshaped an empire. You turn from the tent, the steppe winds howling, and sense the echoes of this tragedy. A conqueror felled not by sword, but by his own excess, a bride left to face a world unmoored. What other nights of terror lie hidden in history's shadows, where marriage meant not love but ruin? You stand in the shadowed halls of Toledo's Alcazar, 1440, where the air is thick with the scent of myrrh and the weight of a kingdom's expectations. Candlelight flickers on stone walls, casting eerie shadows that seem to whisper of failure and shame. Before you, Blanca of Navarre, a princess of 22, stands in a gown of emerald velvet, her golden hair braided with pearls, her eyes bright with hope, yet clouded by unease. Across from her, Henry, Prince of Asturias, soon to be Henry IV of Castile, fidgets in his brocade doublet, his sallow face betraying a nervous frailty at 22. This is no union of passion, but a dynastic bargain meant to secure Navarre's alliance with Castile against Aragon's ambitions. You clutch your woolen cloak, heart thudding, sensing that this wedding night will be a crucible of humiliation, forging a legacy of scorn that will haunt Blanca to her grave. Castile in 1440 tears a realm of fractured nobility, its crown weakened by King John II's indecision and internal strife. Henry, the heir, is a pale shadow of a prince, his health fragile, his demeanor timid, rumors of his weakness already circulating among courtiers. Blanca, daughter of King John II of Navarre, is a prize of diplomacy, her beauty and lineage, a beacon for Castile's hopes of stability. You see her now, her hands smoothing her gown, her smile practiced but faltering as she navigates a court that views her as a means to an heir. Henry, plagued by what chroniclers later hint was impotence, possibly physiological or psychological, stands stiffly, his eyes avoiding hers. You overhear nobles murmur behind their sleeves. The prince lacks vigor. Navarre's daughter deserves better. Their words are barbs, foreshadowing a night that will scar both bride and kingdom. The ceremony in Valladolid's cathedral is a somber affair, its Gothic arches looming over a crowd of wary Castilian lords. You stand among them, the air heavy, with incense and muttered prayers. Blanca's voice is steady as she recites her vows, her Spanish tinged with a Navarrese lilt, her eyes searching Henry's for a spark of warmth. He stumbles through his responses, his hands trembling, his voice barely audible. The crowd's applause is muted, their loyalty to the crown tempered by doubt about this frail prince. John II, watching from his throne, nods, blind to his son's distress. You feel the tension coil, the weight of dynastic hopes pressing on Blanca's shoulders. She is no longer just a princess, but Castile's future queen. Yet as she glances at Henry, his gaze fixed on the floor, her hope dims, a premonition of the ordeal to come. The banquet in the Alcazar's great hall is a strained display, tables, laden with pheasant, almonds, and spiced wine. You weave through the crowd, catching glimpses of Blanca, her laughter forced as she tries to charm the dour courtiers. Henry, seated beside her, picks at his plate, his silence a wall between them. "Tell me of Castile's hills, Henry," she might have said, her voice gentle, but he shrugs, his eyes distant. The nobles whisper, "She'll never rouse him." The prince is no man. Their words sting, sowing seeds of scorn that will grow into public humiliation. Blanca, clutching a letter from her mother urging patience, feels her isolation deepen in this foreign court. You sense her resolve, a flicker of strength beneath her fear, as she faces a future tied to a man who cannot meet her gaze. As night falls, the bedding ceremony begins, a ritual as invasive as it is degrading. You stand in the crowded royal chamber, the air thick with the scent of wax and anticipation. Nobles and clergy press close, their eyes gleaming with curiosity, as Blanca is led to the canopied bed, her face pale beneath her veil. Henry follows, his steps halting, his expression one of dread. The curtains are parted, exposing the couple to the crowd's scrutiny, a tradition to ensure the marriage's legitimacy. You imagine Blanca's heart racing, her breath shallow as she lies beneath the silk sheets, praying for a moment of connection. "Henry, we are bound now," she might have whispered, her voice trembling with hope. But he lies rigid, his body frozen by fear or affliction, unable to act. The courtiers wait, their silence a judgment, as the night passes in agonizing stillness. No consummation, only failure. The morning brings no relief. Word spreads through Toledo. The prince could not perform. Navarre's daughter lies, untouched. The court's gossip, fueled by witnesses' accounts, turns Blanca into a figure of pity and Henry into a laughingstock. You imagine her in her chamber, staring into a mirror, her reflection a stranger in this hostile land. "I am a queen, not a jest," she might have whispered, her voice cracking with resolve. But the humiliation deepens over years. The marriage, unconsummated until its annulment in 1453. Chroniclers like Enriquez del Castillo note the court's invasive probes, Henry tested with prostitutes, his impotence confirmed publicly, whispers of witchcraft or homosexuality swirling. Blanca, examined to prove her virginity, endures further shame, her dignity stripped by leering physicians. The fallout is brutal. By 1453, the marriage is annulled, Henry blaming Blanca's sorcery, though evidence points to his own failings. You see her banished to a convent, her spirit battered but unbroken, her imprisonment a final insult. "I was no witch, only a wife," she might have thought, her prayers a shield against despair. Henry, crowned king in 1454, faces rebellion, his reputation as the impotent, a curse that dogs his reign. You stand in the now quiet Alcazar, the air heavy with the ghosts of their shame, and ponder the cruelty of a court that judged a woman for a man's failure. This wedding night, a silent insult, is a testament to the fragility of power and the brutality of dynastic expectations. Let's pause here. If you're gripped by these tales of marriage turned nightmare, hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. Drop a comment. What's the most shocking royal failure you've heard? These stories of shame and resilience connect us across centuries, revealing the human cost of power. As Blanca's story fades, you wonder, how did these nights of horror shape the tides of history? And what lessons linger in their shadows? The legacy of this night is a cautionary tale of gender and power. Blanca, later freed and remarried, carries the stain of humiliation, while Henry's reign crumbles under rebellion and scorn. Their tragedy, a marriage meant to unite but marked by failure, echoes the pain of those judged by forces beyond their control. You turn from the Alcazar, the stars above Toledo, whispering of resilience, and reflect. These horrific wedding nights, from blood to silence, reveal the cost of ambition. In a world that devours trust,